Hello, everyone. Hello. It's Mary from the living room. Good to see you again. Welcome, folks who are just tuning in. Thank you for joining us today. I don't know about where you're at. Hey, hello, welcome. I don't know where you're at, but it is a little bit gloomy here, a little bit chilly. I can't wait for the spring to officially arrive. We're really excited today because we have a guest joining us all the way from Montreal, someone who I love very much, who helped us actually, was a huge part in helping us start the Living Room Community Art Studio. Her name is Rachel Chainey. And why don't I just jump into it, invite her on right now. So here we go. Let me invite you on, Rachel. Let's view that. Yeah, let's go live with Rachel Chainey, everyone. As she's known in Quebec. Let's see, we're waiting. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Hi, Mary.
Oh
so good to see you.
I'm going to cry. Oh my
God. You're so sweet.
It's so good seeing your face. Oh,
likewise.
So
I've missed you. It's been a long time.
We missed you too.
It has. Yeah.
How are you, lovely lady?
I mean, I'm doing pretty good, all things considered. It's a strange time for all of us, but I usually work out of Concordia University, and I read today online that actually the classes for the fall semester were going to go online.
Yeah.
Which may mean that we won't reopen our campus Art Hives as well as our offices for the Art Hives headquarters until the end of the fall. So essentially meaning January, I guess. So it is quite something.
And for those, you know what, I might there's so much to talk about. I don't even know where exactly to begin, but we can start there. But for folks who may not be familiar with you, I know there are a lot of folks watching. I've already seen folks from Nova Scotia, from other places across the country who are tuning in. Can you, for those folks who may not have met you before or be familiar with who you are, what you do, can you tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I'm an art therapist. I studied art therapy at Concordia University. I am also currently working, I have been since 2014, working as the Art Hive Network coordinator. The Art Hives Network is, it's not really an organization because it's mostly a project out of Concordia University. And it seeks to connect all different art hives that are popping up all over Canada and all over the world. Essentially, in the beginning, it was all over Canada to begin with, but more and more it is growing beyond that. And so a lot of what we do is offer training, consulting, and support the art hives that are looking to emerge or that have been existing for a while, because sometimes it's not only when we begin that there are challenges, they are ongoing, and also it's a platform on which we can share not only the challenges but what is going well and the successes that all of these spaces have, and can inspire each other and build from.
Yeah. And I know sometimes there were places, sometimes we get approached and people will say, well, how do I become an art hive? But they are kind of already doing what an art hive is doing as well. So sometimes I find it's just about letting people know that if you are a creative space, connecting with community, there's this other resource out there for you that you might not have known existed before. So just helping people connect, and you're right, like sharing the successes, sharing the failures, learning, growing, evolving. As you were mentioning, this is a really interesting time for art hives, because everything we do is about people coming together to create.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's been quite special to have to move all of this online. It has also brought opportunities, like the main one that comes to mind is being able to connect with people who are in locations far away from us, and be able to feel that we're in the same space together with them as well, which wasn't possible when we are working only in physical spaces. So one thing that we have in Montreal is we used to have a monthly community of practice, which was an in-person meeting. essentially for different Art Hives practitioners to come together and you know, share and learn from one another. And we knew we were meaning to go online for a while, and we knew that it would be ideal if we did, but you know, sometimes you kind of have to be forced to do something to really jump into it. So with the COVID, we had to actually go ahead and do it, because even for keeping in touch with our locals, we had to do that, otherwise there was nothing else. But in doing it, immediately the first time we offered it, we had people from Nova Scotia on, Newfoundland, Ontario, we had someone from France. So it was amazing, and it has kept going in that same way, that we have, you know, people from abroad who are joining us. So I think that in many ways, it expands community to mean something different than, because often, you know, you're talking about placemaking, and often Art Hives are place-based. So they're really anchored in a neighborhood and the people that live and work and play in that neighborhood. So I think that the kind of silver lining, I guess, of this whole having to be confined situation is expanding that notion of community.
I think that's been something really special for us as well. We've had people who also had moved away from Oshawa, for example, who weren't able to come to the studio. And now we're seeing them come back and connect with people that they haven't chatted with forever and ever. And it's a really, I think there is beauty in all of this chaos and darkness.
Yes.
And that's something that I think the Art Hive movement and artists are really, I think I don't want to say we're good at it, but we're used to having to fly by the seat of our pants, live hand to mouth.
We have, I guess, with our creativity as artists, a sort of a natural propension to be resourceful and resilient and know how to make do with whatever we're given, essentially, or not given.
And I think that, like, seeing that resourcefulness trickle into other areas of life for other people who've maybe not known that they can do that too, that's a beautiful thing to see. I'm really excited about that. And I mean, there are challenges. I know Montreal, I send my love. I'm sure everyone sends their love. You were like, Quebec's been a province that's been really hard hit by everything.
Yes, indeed.
How are you coping? How are folks coping there?
Well, I think that at this point, we all know, like in Montreal, people who have had the virus, someone in our surroundings who has passed away from the virus. You know, like, oddly, my very immediate circle, everyone is keeping healthy so far, but I mean, it's kind of looming. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that concrete.
It's interesting.
It's very looming. But I have had a close colleague who has got it, and her parents also got it, and they were elderly and they passed away from it. So it's been you know, hovering around, like, quite closely. We're really grateful to be keeping healthy here in our household and immediate family, but it's this kind of ambiguous, you never know whenever you're stepping out, am I putting myself or others in danger, or so it's this weird uncertainty at all times, unless we're really in our homes, right? Like, when we're inside the home, we feel secure, but the minute we go outside, it's it doesn't feel the same as before to go out. And I'm sure it's the same for you in Ontario, though, like, even if there are less cases.
I think in the larger cities, I can imagine they're feeling the same way. Here in Oshawa, I think it's a little less so, you know, thankfully. I've been really proud of the Schwa and how, you know, folks have been respecting everything. We're a pretty feisty place we don't like being told what to do by, you know, folks. But I've really been proud of how people have responded with compassion and kindness. And
sorry, I didn't
saw you go
that.
red.
I'm so sorry.
That was exciting. Is that the filter you put on when you're really angry and you want to show, like, you just want to get ragey at people?
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to.
I love
it. I
hit
the button accidentally. I'm so sorry. I didn't know if I could actually do this on my computer or if I had to use my phone because it was Instagram. So I am used to doing all sorts of interviews. I do Zoom calls on the regular, but it's my first time on Instagram Live. So I'm a little bit ignorant about the ins and outs of it.
You're doing great. And,
Okay.
I was even before, like about a minute before signing on to do this with you, I got trapped in a filter loop on Instagram and I didn't know how to get out of it. So I almost chatted with you as a puppy dog
Oh, that
today.
would have been
So
cute.
if
Yeah.
that makes you feel any better, I think we're all learning. We're all
Yes,
learning how
we
to
are.
engage in this way. Yeah.
We sure are.
Like for
Definitely.
it's our folks in like the hives you're talking about that are moving things online. Have they, we know that it's been great for connecting with other people. Have they discovered any other benefits? How are they
Yes,
feeling?
definitely. I think one of the other benefits, apart from the geographical scale, is also being able to reach people who are actually isolated all year because of
Mhm.
physical illness or because they're elderly or have a disability or whatnot.
Yeah.
And people who are not coming out to the spaces because there are barriers for them. So a few people have reported that having this online actually helped them uh, access this idea of community art making that they weren't really able to join in to before.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the main other silver linings other than the being able to reach across distances. So that's a keeper, right? Like it's something that even if we can never go back to our regular
Yeah.
spaces and lives, to keep something online so that we're able to continue to reach people who are more isolated.
Well, I know for like you just were mentioning, the chance that maybe things have shifted, maybe there's a permanent shift in what's happened, or at least for some of us in our lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because one thing I've loved about Art Hives, about everything that you've taught me, everything Janice has taught me, and all the other Art Hive people out there as well, is, this an invitation to embrace the impermanence of things.
Yes, indeed.
And like in the last couple of weeks in particular, I've just been hearing some of those Feldenkrais principles that, Janice
Mm,
uses, the move with what's moving,
yes.
hold that
Yes.
which isn't moving. I always forget the other two, which I should probably research and look into again. But
Mm-hmm.
it feels like, being able to, I'm not, accept maybe isn't the right word, but to know that everything does change. It changes every day, even when we're in our normal routines. Like now I feel like there's an opportunity to just I feel like I'm a little more sensitive to those shifts as they're happening, and I'm beginning to be able to wonder what it might be like to anticipate and, just prepare to change as
Right.
the change is happening, rather than just react to having change
Yes.
thrust upon me. and
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
the archive, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to contemplate these
I,
days.
I agree with you. And I think that even naming that, like even, like part of the acceptance, or I don't know if it's the acceptance, but being able to articulate what is happening to us and how we're feeling about it and making space for that is so important. And
Yeah.
I think that art can do a lot of that for us. It can hold that space for us, and it can allow us to hold the space for each other as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that it plays a very important role. And I read a number of things also during this pandemic that made me really realize how much people actually turn to the arts, whether it's making them, but also viewing it, like whether it's film or whether it's accessing museums online, but the
Yeah.
vital importance, even in the middle of a pandemic, that it's not only about food and shelter, but it's also about nourishing our souls. I think that it's a good
Thumbs up.
like testimony in favor of the arts, and alongside with that in supporting the arts in terms of funding and making it important within the policies that we're governed by.
And you guys at the network are playing such a huge part in affecting change within those policies. Have there been any opportunities during this time, or has it just been more about
Um,
planning when?
I think we're still exploring and planting, and I think there has been different programs that came out. So far, at least in Montreal, I know a few art hives that have applied to those programs, but they actually mostly were supporting very frontline so far organizations that were actually providing food and shelter. But I think it's a second layer of like, once the crisis is more under control, whether we're confined or deconfined, I think that, like, once there's a flow of things, it will come. And I think if nothing else, it is being noticed and noted. And I think there's a lot of reflection and preparing for a different type of future. A lot of degrowth as well in terms of the economy and, like supporting local and growing our own things. And so there's a lot of, sort of going back to the roots that is happening. I see it around me. I see it in the virtual art hive spaces, and I see it also in the community around me.
It's interesting. Yeah, it feels like things are, well, I don't know. I like, at one time it felt like things were very polarized. There was, industry, big business, corporate interests on one side, and all the systems that need to work within that. And then on the other side, that might be where art hives were. We were these strange hippies of the of the art world, right?
Yeah.
Like sort of saying, no, there are ways we can do this. It doesn't have to look like what's come before us. It can look like something different, or maybe we can revisit things. And I'm excited by the fact that we're seeing people return to certain things in this time when they do have time, if they're lucky enough, if they're privileged to be at home and not working in frontline services. But I begin to see people returning to the things that some of us are already doing or encouraging or inviting people to do through the Art Hive movement.
I think it's very true. I think that all of a sudden we're not so much the weirdos, but we're like, people are starting to get it, what matters or something. I don't know. It's been validating, I guess, that part of the whole internet saying the things that we've been saying for 5 years and 10 years. So yeah, I mean, I think there's hope as well to be had. Lots of, paradoxical feelings and, because you mentioned privilege, and I think that's like another thing, though, that this pandemic highlights is the differences in access and privilege, and so there's that too, right? And so it means different things to be quarantined depending on your level of privilege.
Exactly. And I think, that's something we're going to be having more conversations in the upcoming weeks about as well. Like the very fact that I have a home to be in during this time.
To begin with, yeah.
Right? The very fact that I can sit at home and benefit from the government, benefits and things like that, while others may not be able to do that. I think of the grocery store and how quickly it changed. And one of the shifts that I saw in our local store, which was hit, it was impacted and there were losses there in the very beginning, but it went from a lot of sort of white settler folks like myself working cashes, and a lot of younger people, to a lot of racialized people taking over those positions. And I just imagine the conversations that were being held at home with parents with their kids who worked there and things like that, and having privilege so that they wouldn't necessarily have to put their kids at risk. They could make the choice to say, don't work right now.
Yeah, to leave their job and stay at home. Yeah. That takes a lot of privilege to be able to do that. You're so right. Yep.
Just one simple, small one, only one of the things that I've mentioned, like that I've noticed in Oshawa. So I can only imagine what might be happening out there. So it's a time to really continue having these dialogues and challenging one another, I suppose, as well. Yeah. Have you noticed anything interesting in Montreal? Has anything exciting been happening with that creative dialogue?
Well, I think that in Montreal and elsewhere, and I feel like even how I get my news in a way, because I'm not going out in the community, I feel like the news I get are not so Montreal focused as normally, because normally I get, I see things in real, like in person, and I hear from my colleagues and my friends, but now I feel like it's more like, I get my information more broadly. So I see things that are happening here just as much as I see things that are happening in other cities as well. And I feel like this is getting uncovered, like a lot of inequalities are getting uncovered. And of course, in some neighborhoods that have higher rates of, like racialized people and low-income people, unfortunately in Montreal, have been impacted by the virus much more strongly, and that's, it's a tragedy. But if it can help highlight the inequalities that were already there, and understand the systems that are at play behind the scenes that enabled this to happen, so that we can work at changing the system, I think these are the things that we have as a community, as a society, to notice and learn from. And I think it's a hopeful stance to say things like this. I don't know how much I trust the governments to actually do this, but I think that there is something being born out of this whole crisis that is maybe a bit more compassionate and understanding of oppressive systems. And I want to be hopeful that as a society we are learning from this crisis.
I think Art Hives, and anyone who is a part of one, who works for one or in one, I think by nature they tend to be optimistic. We tend to take all the frustration and the anger and make meaning of it and move that forward to create change. And I think as long as, I don't know, who am I? But I think as long as we're working towards making that creative change in some kind of active way, and that could be through the art you make, the conversations you have, the choices you make in consuming and, purchasing, whatever it might be, right? That is change in action. It's that, moving things forward thing. And Hives is great at that.
Yeah, I think it's that with the Hives is that it's a strength-based model. It's looking at what is working in individuals and communities and your creativity, and also it's action-oriented, right? We could have so many dialogues and conversations and opinions and but action, really going out there and gathering, in our past lives, gathering people together. Right now, gathering them on Zoom or on Instagram, but creating a space actively where people can come and have conversations, but also get their hands activated. I'll share with you this thing that I posted on Facebook this morning, but I thought was awesome, and it came with a beautiful artwork as well. And it was about this idea that it was very poetic, but that the hands are the heart, the heart is tied to the hands, and by using your hands, you're actually healing your heart. And I found that to be so beautiful and actually so true, because sometimes when we're too caught up in our heads, we forget to be in our body and we forget to be in our hearts. So I think that, doing creative actions, and by that, of course, art, but it could be gardening, it could be cooking, it could be dancing, so many different things. And I see a lot of that happening online as well, in Montreal, outside Montreal, everywhere, really. People gathering on Zoom to dance or to do, drama-based activities. And it's just this coming together of people to share and do something together. I see it as, the will to live or something, like a survival urge of,
I think going back to, it is that sense of I'm here. I make my mark, I'm here. This shows that I'm still here. We're still here. And art, and again, all creative forms of self-expression, that is one of the things that those do. They take space and make place for ourselves. Perhaps that's something that's happening, placemaking for community coming together. That will always have a place, that will always be something we long for. But perhaps part of this time might also be about reclaiming our own space, for ourselves in life. Mm-hmm. And I think art always does that. And it's amazing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was agreeing with you. And I was thinking that so often our identity is so tied with what we do outside of ourselves, like our jobs for one thing, or maybe our role as a parent, but really, the labels that we put on our foreheads, but being at home all the time kind of connects us back to, our inner space, the parts of us that are not necessarily shared with outer world, and what do they mean to us, and what or maybe more like essential identity or something. And I think that, yes, like again, art can definitely hold space for that. Yeah, for exploring that thing with that.
Speaking for myself, I know that it did, like when, when I was in the living room, running the living room, I didn't really make art for myself that often. And it's since, I mean, that's one thing for me that I'm counting my blessings. I've returned to a creative practice on my own terms and sharing it with the community in a very different way. And I've been missing that for an awfully long time. Buzzing around in the hive, it can keep you really busy, but having this, having a little more still time, a little more quiet time, that's been huge for me. How has your own creative practice been impacted by everything?
So for me, I've kept working, so I haven't had as much free time as I would have wanted to. I did spend a lot of time actually tending to my plants, and that wasn't something that I had planned but it just happened that this was what, in the free moments that I have, because I have my 2 kids at home as well, who are out of school now. So I actually have felt really, really busy.
Yeah.
But the plants, I mean, you can see them.
They're beautiful.
I have a lot of them. Yeah, like taking care of these beings and really noticing them, and yeah, like spending time with them and acknowledging them as other beings that I share my life with. And I have also been planting like seedlings for vegetables. So I have them here too. I don't know. Maybe I can show them to you if I. So they've been growing. I also have done some artwork, like painting watercolors. I'm also helping with a class that's going to be online soon with Concordia. That is actually called SICK, but it's an acronym for Social Innovation Through Creative Knowing, that Janice is teaching. So I've been working on some artwork. So it's work related, but it has to do with, so that one actually went on the poster, but I also had done this other one that was like Mother Earth. And, just been doing a lot of different watercolors. This one was more intuitive and just kind of, doodling with my paintbrush. Yeah. So yeah, it's been the paints, it's been the gardening. I've used Instagram. We're on Instagram right now, right?
Yeah.
So I've used Instagram to do a visual diary. So every day I take at least one picture, which I post to my Instagram. Some days I've taken more than one, but this has, given me a discipline of stopping to notice my surroundings and the beauty in my surroundings, and having this moment of gratitude, for there's always, in even the worst of days, glimmers of beauty, moments of grace, and I've tried to document what that meant to me through my photos. So that also has been a creative practice. If I go on a walk in my neighborhood, which I often call my mental health walks,
yeah,
because it's been so important. The one thing I found hard in this whole working during the pandemic is spending so much time on screens.
Yes.
It has hurt my eyes, my brain, my soul, but also starting to hurt like in the body, like of spending so much time sitting in chairs that are not necessarily adapted to be office chairs. So yeah, I found it hard. And as I was telling you in the beginning, like the fact that our workplaces may not open even in the fall is also kind of like, oh, okay, like what does that mean to keep working from home, online all the time for months and months with kids at home? We're also not going back to school because yes, the schools are reopening here, but it's very different. Like it's going to look nothing like what it used to be. So essentially what we've been told is that the kids would be sitting at their desk and finishing their workbooks for the year, but the books wouldn't even get corrected, and they would only do like math and French and not like, any other subjects or group projects, and everyone at 2 meters, but 2 meters is like on all sides, right? So really you have this like huge bubble around you. So yeah, I have my oldest daughter wants to try it. She wants to go back for a week and see what happens. My youngest one is really not interested. So, so yes, like everything is changing. So there's, and yeah, the screen time is like up, up, up. So that's also trying to keep a balance, right?
Yeah. And I know it's like there was just so many things in what you just said, so many changes that impact every moment of your day, every moment of your life, and intersect with other areas of creativity and learning as well. Like even the teaching thing alone, there might be other teachers watching or watching this later who are experiencing that same challenge, and they've been asked very quickly out of nowhere, create these, you know, these curriculums for students, have them ready to deliver, have all these things prepared, like in person, half and half, then totally online. And just the stress, I can only imagine the stress that comes along with suddenly being expected to not only be a teacher, but also an entertainer, part tech expert, part like all the things. And that's only one aspect of your life.
Right.
Like,
yeah. It is putting a lot of pressure on a lot of people, and doing that while you're also trying to homeschool. And yeah, so there's a lot of like, you know, balancing, feeling inadequate at everything that you're doing pretty much. Yeah, so I'm wondering also, like thinking of the people that are watching right now, and I'm wondering if they have questions or if there's a particular reason that they came into this chat. And
nice.
so, yeah.
Anyone, feel free to send the questions. And also, if you don't have a chance to ask the question right now, like if you send it to me, I can always forward it to Rahel, or I'm sure people can connect with you directly. Is that too much
Absolutely,
to ask?
absolutely. Yeah. There are many ways they can add me on Instagram. You probably see my profile right now, or you could reach me by the Art Hive Network Instagram or Facebook page as well.
Yeah.
Feel free, by all means. Art Hive is an open source concept, so the idea is that we want this network to grow. We want other people who are anywhere and passionate about bringing people together, whether digitally or in person, in the past and in the future, but digitally in the present. And yeah, reach out and we can talk about your ideas. And the idea of having this network is so we can build solidarities with other people who share similar visions for what they want to create in the world in their lifetimes. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
So if there are any questions, we'll just try and keep an eye as they come up, as they scroll up, but we can always share them afterwards as well.
Okay, sounds great.
Have you had any one question repeatedly on your end that you think is worth sharing with folks or addressing now? Like, have people been contacting you about any one thing?
Well, the one thing that people are contacting me about is how to get an Art Hive to go online. That's been the main question that I've received over and over again. And we're developing actually at the moment a guide. It's almost finished. It's sort of a how-to kit on how to start a digital Art Hive. So we'll be sharing that soon on our website, Facebook, Instagram too, but I mean a link to it or something. So yeah, we'll be sharing that for people who are interested or curious about that. I think it's the one thing right now, because everyone has had to move their activities to online, and there has been so many creative offerings, like a doodling workshop online, lots of different skill shares, puppets, printmaking, lots of, we're always into creative reuse, which is this idea of using materials that would be otherwise discarded to create something new. And because people are stuck at home and they cannot necessarily go out to buy supplies, using what you have at home. And we've been seeing in this a pop-up virtual art hive, like examples of people using coffee or whatever they have, you know, laying around spices to paint. And so it's been really cool to see what people are coming up with, you know.
Yeah. Well, if we can help with that, if the living room can help with that as well, if there's anything we can do, let us know too.
Oh, that'd be lovely. I mean, because I know you've been doing things online as well, and it was in a different format. Like you're using Instagram a lot, right?
Like we're doing a few different things. So at the beginning, it was a bit of an experiment. We wanted to see who responded to what platform. So for what it's worth, for anyone who's listening, and again, it depends on the community you already have and how, like, if you have one area that's working for you, like if people follow your Hive, like if you have a big Facebook following, like
Mhm.
Facebook live streams have been really fun. So we just have like right now it's only an hour and a half every week that people tune in and we make art and they can make what I'm making, they can make something different, but it gives us an opportunity for a lot of people to come on board and chat at the same
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, the Zooms, we're going to be doing Zoom workshops coming up in the next little
Mm.
while and exploring
Awesome.
that. And this is just nice just to, you know, to connect and like,
Yeah.
and we will be saving these. We weren't able to save them at first. We thought we were, and we weren't. But for everyone who's interested in this interview, sharing it later on, we will be saving it and then sharing it with the community on YouTube on another platform as well.
Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
great.
But
Yeah.
as soon as you have a kit, let me know.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
And
almost
we'll,
ready. Like I think in the next week we would be able to share it with you, so you could give your feedback and add to it about what has been working for you, and
yeah.
you know how you overcome certain challenges. There were really a lot of different things that we looked at in terms of, you know, it's a different type of space, and so to
Yeah.
ensure that everyone who's, for us, we've most been using Zoom, but to ensure that everyone had space and opportunity to share what they were doing, and so like to reframe perhaps certain participants, or even thinking about you know, if people were using, like, were, you know, like drinking for instance on the screen because they're in their home, so they can do whatever they want, but usually an art hive is a sober space, so how do you mitigate that, and
Yeah.
so it's been really interesting to note all of the different challenges and things that we hadn't thought about that came up, and how we were able to work around them and come up with certain guidelines, but also leave space for growth. And so it's been a really interesting process for sure, huge learning curve for most
Yeah.
of us, because we've had a few people that we've worked with who had the experience of working online, whether they were we had like Pandora's with La Riche d'Art du Plateau. She's teaching English as a second language online. Like that's her regular job, right? So
Yeah.
for her, it was a familiar feeling to be on Zoom and to be managing a group like that on a screen. And so, you know, like different levels of being familiar with those technologies and really learning from one another through that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's been helpful for us too is imagining that when people come on, again, people join at different times as well, sometimes depending on what platform you're using. So, you know, just any way you can find to transfer what happens in the regular space online, creating that entry point. It looks
Yes.
a little different these days, but there's still some kind of doorway that everyone walks through when they're coming in to the
Yeah.
space that you've created. And it is the thing I keep coming back to. Yeah, the space is created by the people who inhabit it, whether that's
Right.
virtually or physically. So that
Mhm.
always remains. And
I think so too. And as in this physical art hive, the welcome is a really key element. I think is everything in a way. Like
yeah,
it seems like a detail, but it's really everything to acknowledge each person as they're arriving and making them feel like they are wanted there, they belong, and we want them to spend time with us. And it's okay, like however they arrive and whatever they make, and whether they have experience in art making or they don't, it doesn't matter. They are welcome, and what they have to offer matters, and
yeah,
that essence I feel is the same,
yeah.
really. Yeah.
Well, that's a lovely note to kind of leave things on, I suppose. How,
Yeah.
yeah, have I kept you long enough? Shall I release you to the
It's
rest
all
of the
good. I
day?
mean, I'm happy to stay. I'm happy to end now also. I don't want to hold people captive for too long. But please feel free. I see someone commented that a kit will be fantastic. We'll be happy to disseminate it as soon as it's ready, which will be very soon.
Yeah,
And by all means, reach out. We also have our community of practice, which is a free meeting that is now held online. We try to sort of keep it bilingual, but we mostly do it in English. So, because most people will understand English and not necessarily understand French, even if they're
yeah,
francophones. So it ends up being mostly in English. So don't be shy if, you know, you don't have to worry that it's French or anything, even though we're based in Montreal. Now that it's more, you know, across well, I have trouble with my, sorry, I keep hitting. I really wonder, like, are you actually on a computer screen right now?
No, so this is a simple thing. And again, because in my background, I feel like I had some privilege, some knowledge ahead of this. I live with a filmmaker, so that's always a good thing. Well, not always for everyone. You don't have to live with a filmmaker. You do you. I just happen to. So I have a little tripod
Oh,
and a
okay.
small little ring light. So maybe
Okay.
I'll take, and they're really, and again, there's a bit of a wait list now for anyone who might be out there trying to source equipment. Everyone's sourcing it at exactly the same moment
Right.
in time. But if it's something that you anticipate doing for your art or for your teaching or for your art hive, it's not a bad thing to invest in, and it's just a little sort of tripod and a ring light, and the phone sits either in the middle of it or on top of it. So it
Okay.
just helps, keep me hands free so I can, show off and like, oh, I'm enjoying my coffee.
Yeah, cool. It's good to know because right now I'm holding my phone, which is why I keep hitting all of the different filter buttons and
Yeah.
because usually when I do my Zooms, I do them on the computer, so I have my hands free.
Yeah.
So learning. It's all learning.
So much, and there's lots of little tricks. Yeah. We'll figure it out together, everyone. We'll figure
Right.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much, Mary. It's so nice to speak with you. I was speaking with Janice earlier and she was sending her love to you. Yeah, we all miss you. It's been so long since we've seen each other in person, but at least seeing you on the screen is, it's already making my heart all fuzzy and warm. So
I miss you too, and I send my love to everyone there, and I'm sure everyone sends their love to Montreal in general.
Yeah,
Sending you a
thank you
big
for the love. Yeah, big hugs, and I hope you're doing well out there in Oshawa too.
we are. And before you go, is there any last shout out or someone like you'd like to say hello to, or anything you'd like to leave our folks with who are watching today?
Well, I did see a few names of people I knew. I don't know if they're still there, but whether I know you already or not doesn't really matter. I'm thrilled that you listened in. I hope that you got what you came for, and feel free to reach out at any time. We're a big community. It's like I see the Art Hives Network as an art hive for the art hives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the same reasons that individuals, participants come to an art hive, the art hive facilitators can come to, our community of practice and share. And even if you're new to it or if your experience doesn't matter, you're all welcome. Then, yeah.
I think I'd like to join that. I haven't visited yet. So is that possible?
Yes, of course. It's on Fridays. It's every other week. So it's not this Friday. It's the following one. So on the 22nd at 10 a.m. till 12 p.m.
Well, I look forward to seeing you there again.
Montreal, Toronto time, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So we hope to see you.
Definitely. I look forward to it.
I want to show you the rainbow to end on because this is in the window of the living room in my house, not the living room that Mary is in. But we have this thing you were asking in Montreal. So we have this whole movement of painting rainbows everywhere, essentially. It kind of started organically and it really picked up. I don't know if you have it in Oshawa as well or in other places where folks are at, but it's been uplifting. It has worked. So I did that with my daughters. We painted the window together.
I love it. And you know what? We do have one here. I've got one in my window right now. I'll show a picture of it to folks afterwards. I made ours out of tissue paper.
Oh, nice.
Isn't it interesting how one of the first ways everyone responded was by making art to put in their windows?
Right. Like even in places and for individuals who weren't necessarily arts-based before are doing that as well. And I think that, it speaks volumes in terms of the importance of being creative in our lives.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Mary. It was great. Thank you for having me. And I hope to see you again soon.
We will.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Bye. And now we'll just do this. Bye, Rachel.
Bye, Mary.
Oh, so there we go, folks. Thank you so much, everyone who joined us today. Thank you, Rahel, for joining us and chatting with us about Montreal, about all things Art Hives. This is an interesting time for all of us here, but yeah, we'll move through it, and we'll move through it together, and we'll discover some interesting things about ourselves and our communities along the way. Thanks so much for joining us. The living room will be back tomorrow on Facebook for a live stream hangout at 2 p.m. If you'd like to join us, drop in, make some art, chat with us. And until we can connect again in person, we look forward to connecting and creating with you again online. Take care, everyone. All the very best. And see you soon. Bye.